Hey, welcome to another segment of Hardcore Sports. So glad you joined us for another segment of Hardcore Sports. Shout out to Kenny Graham and Jamie Hickson. And this has been sponsored by Hub 17 NYC. And they're going to be having an event at the art. They're going to be having an art wave on February, on May 12th. That's next weekend. The art wave, it starts at 12 and it ends at 11. So it's going to be a bunch of artists performing. There's like a whole host of artists. I'm not going to go into all of those artists, but it's going to be art and music and face painting, food, fun. And it's, again, the art wave. And if you need more information, go to Hub 17 NYC, and it's at 73 Way Street, Hub 17. That's what's up. We've got, if Dan is here, you know that we're going to be talking about some kind of horse racing kind of thing. And so what's going on, Dan the Man?
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, he's our resident throughout the years. He's come up and he's been our resident handicapper. And we've got some major races again. It's May, and we have Cinco de Mayo. Tomorrow is Cinco de Mayo and a bunch, Cinco de Mayo, and then we have the Kentucky Derby. And I think it's some kind of boxing match or something like that. There's always some boxing match on the first Saturday in May. But with the weather we've been having, 80s, 90s, weather we're getting the summer, Springfield going on again. So we will go to the horse racing in a minute. We'll keep you on your seats for horse racing. But there's some things that came down today. And this week that we want to square away and get you up to date on. First, Matt Harvey was placed on assignment. The Mets asked Matt Harvey to go to the minor leagues and find himself there, and he refused. So the Mets officially placed him on assignment. That came down a couple of hours ago. The Knicks hired a new coach, a new head coach finally. They interviewed 10 candidates, including Mark Jackson and Mike Woodson. David Fizdale actually won. You had Mike Budenholzer from the Atlanta Hawks and a few others that came. Juwan Howard was also interviewed. I think he was the last interviewee to interview for the position. But finally, the Knicks did come to an agreement and found they will be making an announcement, official announcement, and press conference next week. David Fizdale, who used to be an assistant with the Miami Heat and won championships with LeBron as an assistant, he went over to Memphis Grizzlies as a head coach. I think he was there for a year or two, and. But also, the Fan, not going to go too much into it. They just had some recent changes. We know they had the kids. I call them kids, but they're in their 30s, 40s something, and they took over from Mike Francesa, who retired in December. Mike Francesa all of a sudden comes out of retirement. This has been going. That's been the buzz in radio for 2 weeks, that Mike Francesa was coming back and he was bumping the kids. So a lot of people are like, why is he coming back? Like, he had like this whole big retirement thing. Like I'm talking about, he had this big, huge retirement. I mean, he talked about him retiring for months. And then like on the last week, he must have had 150 different guests that come on the show and shout him out, and thanks for your whatever, and then all of a sudden he's going to make the decision to come back. So I mean, it's a lot of ambivalence. So so a lot of people came to the aid of the kids. A lot of people love Mike. So I like Mike and I like the kids. So I'm going to continue listening. And I didn't think it was fair for the kids. The kids are where I'm talking about kids. I'm talking about Chris Carlin, Bart, and Maggie. I think they do a fantastic job. But they bumped them to one. Everybody had to shift. to give room for Mike now. So Mike has a shorter show than he used to. Mike used to be on from like 1 to 6:30. Now he's on from 3 to 6:30. The kids were on from 2 to 6:30. Now they have the kids from 1 to 3. They moved Evan and Joe up. So you have Evan and Joe from 10 to 1. The kids are on from CMB, they call them. Cash Money Brothers. The old Cash Money Brothers thing from New Jack City. That's their opening. That's their hook. And then they have Mike Francesa that comes on from 3 to 6. Well, anyway, I've been listening with this whole Knicks thing and the end of the season with the Knicks. And I just heard a bunch of stories about the Knicks that I didn't like. And I want to give my own version of the Knicks. Some of you have heard parts of it already. And I hope not to bore people with my story about the Knicks. But I really want to square away because there's a lot of misinformation that's out there. It all starts when James Dolan bought the Knicks. And when he bought the Knicks, people were scared because he was just going to do what George Steinbrenner, he was going to use the George Steinbrenner approach. I'm not sure when James Dolan bought the Knicks, but I think he bought the Knicks around 96, if I'm thinking correctly. Around that time, he was going to buy a championship like George Steinbrenner did. I'm just going to get the best players and win a championship. And the Knicks were on their way. They had Patrick Ewing on the team. They had Allen Houston, which was a high. They went and got Sprewell and Camby. These were high-priced players. Even Chris Childs was a big contract. So you had a bunch of players on that team. So here we go. The rest of the NBA is mad. So they instill this salary cap. And previously, I don't know what the rules are. I don't think there was a salary cap previously. If it was, it wasn't enforced correctly. But anyway, after the lockout, during the lockout season, the reason why they locked out is they installed a $50 million salary cap. Just remember that number, $50 million salary cap, which the Knicks were way over because remember, Dolan wanted to buy a championship. So at the time, it wasn't a big deal to the Knicks and Knick people because the Knicks were winning. The Knicks went to the finals. Nobody wasn't thinking about salary cap and all this other stuff. You had an aging Ewing, which the Knicks finally traded. And then it came time to re-up on Allen Houston, which they did. And I think they started running into problems and started realizing we have to make some changes here. And I think they brought Scott Layden in. I don't think Scott Layden knew what he was doing because he went and he drafted Frederick Weiss. And so the Knicks were upset. James Dolan was upset. He went and got Isaiah Thomas. And even though Isaiah Thomas wasn't liked by the press and got a bad talk in the media, Isaiah Thomas was the one to get the Knicks back in financial shape. A lot of people didn't understand the moves that Isaiah Thomas was making, but every move he made, including the Stephon Marbury deal, was a way to get the Knicks under the cap within a significant amount of time. It took years to get the team under the cap. Just keep that in mind. This doesn't go by emotion. It goes by stats and facts. I don't do this show to talk about what my emotions are. I'm telling you what the facts are. The facts are, if you take a look at it, when Isaiah Thomas was here, the Knicks' salary went down every year. Isaiah was hamstrung. Isaiah and the Knicks were hamstrung because the rules were you couldn't get a free agent if you were over the cap. So it took 5 to 7 years under the Isaiah and the Donnie Walsh regime to get under the cap where they can go after free agents. And they were finally able to go get. The Knicks didn't start turning around until Stoudemire came here. Carmelo Anthony was signed and was traded for. And that's when the Knicks started getting back going again. They won 54 games and went to the second round with Stoudemire and Carmelo. So it wasn't all a disaster. Then we hit some stumbles here and there with Phil Jackson was a disaster. And nobody thought it was. And the real big disaster with Phil Jackson was the hiring of Fisher. The hiring of Fisher made things bad. When the Fisher coaching situation, when Fisher got involved with that player's wife, that's when the Knicks and Fisher had to part ways. Matt Barnes. Fisher got involved and he's actually engaged this month, engaged to Matt Barnes' wife. And he was cheating with Matt Barnes' wife. So you could imagine that locker room with conversations with Carmelo Anthony with this stuff buzzing around the league. So what happened was the Knicks, Phil Jackson couldn't even hire a coach. And Phil Jackson wanted to make Kurt Rambis the coach. And that wasn't going to happen. We have Isaiah Thomas and this has been written about. This is not made up. Jeff Hornacek is an Isaiah Thomas guy. Isaiah Thomas played for Jeff Hornacek's father. So that's how close they are. And now we have Steve Mills and Scott Perry now. We have Steve Mills and Scott Perry. And where does Scott Perry come from? Scott Perry came from the Detroit Pistons. Where did Isaiah Thomas play? Pistons. Who did Scott Perry play for? Joe Dumars. Work for as an executive. Joe Dumars. So you put it together. Now, going back to 2010, you have LeBron James visiting various teams as a free agent. I don't think that the look of Donnie Walsh in a wheelchair was what LeBron expected when he came to visit with the Knicks. I think now with an assistant coach that LeBron James played with previously, I think could be an indication that this second round of free agent tour that LeBron is, that we have something that LeBron might latch onto. So, and this has been written about. It's not, if you look at the Daily News and you read the Washington Post, Dwayne Wade one of the few people that shout Fizdale out. And a year ago, it was written that LeBron James wants to play with Melo, Dwayne Wade, and CP3 before he retires. If the Knicks can make it happen, let's make it happen. We already have Kawhi on the radar. So it's already in the works, and it's already been talked about. Stephen A. Broke the story during Super Bowl week. So the story's out there for those people who don't know. Even if we don't get LeBron, the first order of business is making the trade for Kawhi. Kawhi has been injured, and things went awry with the Spurs. He doesn't want to play for the Spurs anymore. The Spurs look like they're going to be a team that's going to be looking to rebuild because a lot of those guys are getting older. They were bounced in the first round without Kawhi. So I think that's a team that's going to be looking for players to rebuild. And it's been talked about a lot that Kawhi is interested in coming to New York. And I would love to have Kawhi and LeBron with the Knicks and starting a new chapter in new chapter. Again, a lot of people don't like Isaiah Thomas, but he's still here. Whether you like it or not, he works for the Liberties. But what you think? What you think? If you think that anything's going to happen with the Knicks with Isaiah there, it's not going to be passed through Isaiah, and this has been talked about. So I'm not saying anything that hasn't been talked about in the press. So Dan, you've been following the story at all with the hiring of a new coach?
Yeah, what's interesting with this with the coach, you forgot to mention that Fizdale was the assistant coach under Mike Woodson, and from what I've read, they interviewed Woodson, but I think they interviewed Woodson to try to get some background on Fizdale, because what Fizdale is going to do, from what I read, he's going to hire Mike Woodson as his assistant coach.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, Woodson has said, and I'm glad you mentioned it as well. Mike Woodson has said he wants to work as an assistant for Fizdale. He's willing to do it. So I mean, I mean that would be great. Remember the Knicks won 54 games under Woodson. So
and they haven't made the playoffs since Woodson.
Yeah, everybody said, first of all, and see, this is the thing I want to say. I don't follow the crowd. I read what I need to read, and I do my own assessments. First of all, 99%, before they got Melo, 99% of radio and TV personalities and everybody you talked to said the Knicks would never get Melo because the Knicks never had the pieces to get Melo. But Melo became a Knick in one of the biggest trades in NBA history. So I don't listen to what they say on the radio. Up until the deadline, Melo was traded to the Knicks like a minute before the deadline, the trade deadline, at midnight that night. And everyone said it wouldn't happen. The Knicks never had the pieces, but they made it happen. So things could happen with the Knicks. I don't listen to the crowd. I don't listen to whatever radio says. I don't listen to the crowd. I look at the finances. Can they afford them? Do they have money under the cap? If they don't have the money under the cap or they don't have cap space, that's another thing. If they don't have cap space, then they don't have cap space. But the thing about James Dolan, I'll tell you this, and this started after this situation, and I'm glad I brought this up also. The Knicks were hamstrung ever since Dolan, ever since that 1998-99 lockout season. The Knicks have been hamstrung because of that salary cap. So 2010 was when they were relieved. They actually got their payroll down to zero and went after Stoudemire. So you have to understand numbers to understand sports these days. It's not just black and white. It's money involved as well. And it's salary cap. That's why the NFL is so mixed up now, because of salary cap. You can't have dynasties no more in the NFL. Why? Salary cap. So because the teams can't afford to keep players. Why do you think Seattle didn't become a dynasty? They won one Super Bowl. They could have won two, but that's it. But yeah, the NBA is numbers, and you got to understand. And Donnie Walsh was following the Isaiah plan, and Donnie Walsh gets the credit for getting the Knicks under the cap, but the Knicks were already headed that way with Isaiah Thomas. The only reason why Isaiah Thomas left the Knicks was because of that Anuka Brown-Sanders nonsense. But other than that, the Knicks were on their way financially. And all of those guys, Wilson Chandler, all those guys, Nate Robinson, all those guys were traded for Melo. So yeah, I meant to say that to say this, and then we're gonna go to horse racing.
I thought Nate Robinson was traded for man, who was he traded for? For a few guys, he was traded to Boston, wasn't
he? Yeah, he was traded to Boston.
Yeah, because he wasn't in the Melo deal.
He wasn't in the Melo deal? All right.
No.
But I said that to say this. Ever since the Knicks were hamstrung in that deal, Dolan has straddled the fence with the cap. He's recently, if you've been watching over the past 6 or 7 years, he won't go over the cap anymore. So every year, when it comes down to July 1st, when free agents available, he always has enough cap space to sign somebody if they want to come here. That's why the Knicks a couple years ago went and got Noah and they went and got Derrick Rose. But they weren't enough. But he went and got those players to surround Porzingis. But he makes the Knicks available. Like this season, there's going to be some players, salaries, that come off the cap. So he could sign maybe a LeBron, maybe somebody else. So that's just to let you know. So it's not any curse. I don't want to say it's a conspiracy, but if you go back and look at it, if you look at what was going on, why they had the lockout, why did they have installed such a strict cap, and the Knicks were $50 million over. It took 7 years from 2003, check it, to 2010. I study it. I study the numbers. From 2003 to 2010, it took those years for the Knicks to get under the cap. It wasn't easy. And the Knicks could only get mid-level exceptions as free agents. So when you hear all this Jerome James, and they sign him and they sign others, those were just guys that were mid-level exceptions. That was no money. So, and not Jim Jones, or some other guy, Jones. It was some other guy that they signed that Isaiah Thomas gets a lot of flack for. But those guys were mid-level exceptions. And they exaggerate everything Isaiah did in the press for nothing. When the end game, the problem is people get thrown off by winning a championship. It don't matter who was the GM, the Knicks wasn't winning a championship because they were $50 million over the cap. So how are they going to win a championship? Nobody was going to win a championship. No one was going to win a championship during those years. The end game was getting the Knicks to zero so they can go after free agents. And that's what they did under Donnie Walsh in 2010. So now we're here. We're years removed from 2010. We took it. We didn't win a championship, but we had a good team. We had Jason Kidd. We had Melo. We had Stoudemire. We went to the second round of the playoffs. We had Tyson Chandler. We had a good team with a good bench. We starting to rebuild. We tried Phil Jackson. It didn't work. I think he lost confidence in the team by his pick for head coach. And then now we're here again, starting all over. This is my version of the Knicks story. Go check it. Oh, one other thing I want to put in there. I meant to put in there. When they went and got Marbury, when Isaiah went and got Marbury, Allen Houston, it was supposed to be the team of Mark Jackson and not Mark Jackson, Marbury and Allen Houston in the backcourt. Allen Houston, beknownst to nobody, couldn't play anymore. So the Knicks and the Knicks fans were like in limbo because it was a shocking thing dealing with Allen Houston and not knowing him or what was going to happen to him. So I don't want to blame Allen Houston, but the Allen Houston thing devastated the franchise, especially they had just spent $100 million on Allen Houston, and then to find out he had a career-ending injury. So, but when Isaiah Thomas got here and the trade was supposed to be Marbury, Houston, with Crawford coming off the bench, they would have had an awesome three-guard situation that never would materialize because Allen Houston was hurt. and then he retired in 2005. So yeah, here we go. That's my story. Do your research. I'm gonna put it on YouTube. Do your research, and then you can check me if I'm wrong about anything. All right, we're here. I went a little bit over, but here we go. Kentucky Derby. One of the starts tomorrow. What's the time? What time do they start running?
I don't know. I think it's 10 minutes to 7.
10 minutes to 7 is post time.
Yeah, what's that? 6:50. I think it's the 12th race, Churchill Downs, and get your money ready.
Get your money ready. So
Yeah.
what's the deal? What are your picks? I mean, there's been a lot of things going on this week with these horses, and we've been watching. We've talked about some of these horses throughout the. I mean, this isn't anything new. We talk every week. Every time we have the show, we talk about some kind of leading up to this horse thing. So what do we have left here?
All right, my picks is Vino Rosso to win the race.
Vino Rosso to win.
Yeah. He looks good on the track this whole week. He's been working out well. He has the right pedigree. He can run all day. And the jockey, John Velasquez, says, that this is the horse that he wanted always to ride because he could have rode Audible. He could have rode Noble Indy in the race. The horse I'm picking second is number 9. Well, we'll say 18 is Vino Rosso. Number 9 is Hofberg. It's a Bill Mott horse. This is another horse that can run all day. He finished second in the Florida Derby. Really, I thought he had a chance to win. If you go back to the race, he was blocked by Mississippi trying to close. But he's been working out and looks great onto the track this week. I mean, it's unbelievable how he looks. I have 18-9-6 Good Magic. Good Magic is on the 3rd race of his form cycle, the same form cycle where he won the Breeders' Cup. My big long shot in the race is number 8, Lone Sailor. The reason why I'm playing this horse is because some of the biggest long shots in recent years come out of Louisiana Derby. For instance, in 2013, Golden Soul ran second at about almost 40-1. And then in the next year, 2014, Commanding Curve, he was like 50-1 morning line. He came second in the Kentucky Derby, and he came from the Louisiana Derby. Also, the jockey, James Graham, he's from Dublin, Ireland. This is his first Derby, but he's been riding for 14 years. And his nickname is 50-1 because, I've caught him on a couple of 50-1 shots in Arlington Park, where he comes from. He rides the Arlington Park Fairgrounds and the Keeneland circuit. So that's my picks, 18-9-6-8. The reason why I'm not playing Justify, he has 4 things that's wrong with him. Number 1, he comes from the Stormcat sire line. That's 0 for 51. Number 2, he has no race as a 2-year-old, and that's 0 for 61 since 1882. Number 3, he faced 14 horses in his first 3 races, and he's facing 20 horses in the Derby in 1 race. And number 4, his jockey Mike Smith has lost on the most post-time favorites in the history of the Kentucky Derby. There was a period where he lost on 5 straight Derby mounts that were favorites. His only win is at 50-1, so that goes to show you that this guy has problems winning with the Derby favorite. So he's on Justify, and everybody's playing Justify. Everybody's picking Justify to win the Kentucky Derby.
All right, what's your picks again? Because we got 55 seconds. Vino Rosso.
18-9-6 and 8.
18-9-6-8. I got a question I got to ask you about this after we get off the air, because, we only got 40 seconds left. We're going to shout out to Jamie and Kenny Graham. So, yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure you place your bets 18-9-6-8. I'm going to bet him. I like Magnum Moon. So, which is the 16 horse, right?
Yeah.
So, we'll see. God bless. We'll see you in June. Peace.